I got it now. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Saganavabdhu, Saganopanattu, Sagaviryam Karvavage, Tejasvina, Vadidamastuma, Dishabhage. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Ukena Chittasya Padena Vacham, Malam Sarirasya Vaitakena, Yopa Karotam, Pravramunina, Patanjali, Pranjali, Manadosmi. So let's see where we are left. Yeah, so we are looking at the second chapter of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Yoga Sadhanas. We saw the 4 vyugas that he is giving. The vyugas to identify what is grief, what causes the grief, what is freedom, and what is upayam for the freedom. So, heyam, heya hetuku, hanam, hana upayam. And then after setting up this in the 16th sutra, he then said, drishta drishya yoho samyogo heya hetuku. He said the heya hetu. Heya means samsaram. Samsara means, remember, it is living in dependence, living in ignorance, living in sorrow. And Patanjali very eloquently showed us the pleasures of life that we see in the objects of experiences are nothing but dukkham parading like sukham. This we should not forget. Parinama dukkham, taba dukkham, and samskara dukkham is at different stages of dukkham, and it appears sometime as a sukham to us. Therefore, for the purpose of this learning, to make it all compact, we bundle everything, all the experiences of this life, which you call it bhogam, as dukkham. So to lead the life, therefore, we need to be immune to this dukkham. Therefore, we should either destroy it or become completely mute to that nothing affects us. I say this too, either or, because sometimes the law of karma has imposing on us. This prarabdham has started that. That means this embodiment is already the result of our previous karmas. Therefore, we are suffering in physically, mentally, spiritually, economically, in so many ways. So there is no cure in the sense that it is not adidam dukkha, it's a vartamanam dukkham. It's already happening. But we can reduce it in the future. But more importantly, we can cope with this. This we must understand. I underline this. Coping. Of course, the miracle will happen. That means if I have to endure it, whatever comes in, what is the point of prayer? If it's a prarabdham, this is what happens to the Purva Mimamsas who have been so by the dictum of love of karma, the need for a God becomes unnecessary. They call fatalistic people. That's not what is meant. You have to experience it. That is the law of karma. Therefore, if you did something wrong in any janma, it comes as an adhishta palam. Therefore, you have to experience it. God cannot change it. That's the law. The law he has given. We can't change it. Then what's the point of praying to him? There comes the very important thing to understand. What is experience? Experience is dwelling, enduring in that context over a period of time. You need to have a time, space, quality need to be there for any experience. You remember we learned about this in the earlier sutra. The klesha palam comes as jati, ayush, and bhoga. Ayush. Ayush means what? Life. That means time. So any experience happens over the time domain. But the beauty is, when you are deeply experiencing it, you miss out time. When you read a book, when you are in something very involving, you're enjoying it, time is not there. But it was a career. So therefore, what therefore we should understand, experience is therefore resting on the vector of time. Here comes this power of God. So when I pray to God, the vector of time, the vector is what? Your direction and the speed. God can change the speed of time. We can change the speed of time, right? When you go in the space, if you go 250 kilometers up there in atmosphere, time changes. You go in a different time plane. So therefore, the time is not sasvatam in the sense that it does not change. It does change relative to you. Therefore, if you pray to God, God will say, okay, you are praying, you are a good person. Therefore, I will alterate the time for you. Therefore, you will experience it. Maybe what you need to suffer for 1 day, 1 week, goes in 1 hour. So therefore, the prayer is not compromised. Bhakti is not compromised. But you must have this. This is a very important point to understand. You must therefore prepare to face the consequence of your actions. Don't blame God for it. You take it. But then you pray to God so that you have the capacity to endure it. Now, initially you may not have the capacity. God therefore makes you small problems. You have a bad dream the whole night. You could not sleep. Don't complain. Because it may be the way God has given that dream experience in a very high, in dream you have Durita Kalam, right? Everything is, you're born, grown, married, died, all happens in the dream. The time is different. But you still experience it. In fact, dream experience is a lot more hurting than real experience. Is it not? So, why did I come here? Right, okay. So therefore, to understand this, dukkham, moksham is therefore the ability to cope with this. Hanam is moksham. Don't say moksham, therefore you will be, if you are suffering physically, when you get the jnanam, the physical suffering is healed. No, that's magic. Magic may happen, but that is cheating the law of karma. You will suffer somewhere else. That's why Bhagavan Ramana, when he has got this problem on his hand, and he just endured it. No, we ask some silly questions. They're so powerful. Why can't you just touch it and then it all disappear? They could do it. But why? It's not theirs. It is there to die. The body has to decay. It decays in this way. So what they got the capacity to endure it. That is moksha. So he said the 4. Then Patanjali started explaining the 3 words, important words. Drishta, drishyam, samyoga. Drishta means one who is seeing it, the perceiver, the apprehender, you and I. Drishyam is that which is enjoyed, that which is experienced. The very world, everything else. Okay, we commonly think, well, this I know. I am on the world. I know it. I study the world. I go to all the university, get a PhDs in many subjects. But here it's very different. Here it is important to understand this because there is a samyogam. There is a kind of a messed up understanding of who you are with what you're experiencing with. This is the cause. So in 17 he said, Heya Hetu. Hetu is cause. The cause of the suffering is samyoga. Samyoga means, as I told you before, it's a mixture of two different things. What are samyogam? Drishtru and the drishyam. The seen and the seer are mixed up. We saw this. Then the last class, again, we started explaining drishyam. So the drishyam is prakasha kriya sthiti sheelam bodhentriyatmakam bhoga abhabadgartam drishyam. The Padha says, now I'll tell you about this word drishyam and drishtru and samyogam. Understand very carefully. Drishyam is what you experience in the world. It comes bodhentriya atmakam. Bhuta indriya atmakam. Atmakam means it is made up of, consists of bhuta indriyam, gross element, subtle elements. What they are made up of prakasha, kriya, sthiti seelam. Prakasha seelam, kriya seelam, and sthiti seelam. That is, it is basically made up of three gunas. You know that the gunas are here are vishayas, dravyas, substance. So therefore you can see in any object these three attributes, that they are illuminating, they are joyful, they are movements, there is inertia. So this we studied so many times, so we know it. But the important point in this Sutra is, this exists as a world of objects for you to give you two things, bhoga, apavarka, artham. Bhoga means experience, which we know. If you think carefully, there will be a question in your mind. Patanjali has got an answer in the following sloka, sutras. If the objects exist for my experience, that means they exist for me. He's going to say yes for you. So, because if you're not experiencing it, if you're not eating the food is not for you. So there is no, if you're not a bhokta, that is not bhoga. But the important point is that the experience that you have in this world is also the means to apavargam. Apavargam means, vargam is to give away, negate, which is root, discard away. That means liberate, moksha. So the world is very important for moksha. But then the purpose of Patanjali saying this is for us to understand this common object about all the world objects, and they are there to help. Therefore, the temple is a place where I can go and then have happiness, and also I can worship and meditate and look for freedom. Like that you can see it. But he draws your attention back to you very closely and say, within you there is a drishyam. That is where you got a samyogam completely going wrong. That is your buddhi. This you must understand very well. We've gone through the last class, but a very quick summary. When you experience it, any experience happens in you because that object of experience, which is outside, creates a vritti. Vritti means a chalanam in your thought of that object. This Arthras gives you a metaphor. I mean, basically like exact like this. Okay, so your mind becomes. So if you are seeing your daughter or a grandson. The grandson comes into your mind. The mind becomes grandson. And the mind is illuminated by the buddhi. Therefore, buddhi becomes the grandson. Say becomes means understanding the grandsons. So there is a change happening in your andhakaranam. How do you say this? Sometimes I'm just sitting there and I'm meditating or I'm thinking deeply, and you are coming in front of me and you are a good friend, and I show no more emotions at all. Why is that? My eyes are looking at you. It is not looking at you, physically looking at you, but it is eyes are engaged, hypnotized by the senses and the mind to think about what I have to do next class, for example. So I'm in a deep contemplation of something. Therefore, the vritti that is in my mind and buddhi is not you, your appearance, but something else. You see? Therefore, I don't experience you. Experience you means I don't recognize you. I don't react to the usual joy I express when I see you. The experience cannot happen unless there is a modification in the buddhi. Right? But then I see, I enjoy. Is it the buddhi that is enjoying it, or something beyond the buddhi is enjoying it? That is a question we do not understand. But we simply say, my buddhi is enjoying it, therefore I am enjoying it. Patanjali is saying in this sutra that buddhi is a drishyam. The buddhi is not you. Therefore, because I'm not able to see you, when I don't focus on you, therefore my awareness has to be on my buddhi and see what is happening in the buddhi. Like when you're watching a movie, I watch the movie, whatever comes on the screen, it comes to me, right? Same way, whatever comes on the buddhi, I experience it. Therefore, I am actually experiencing what? The buddhi. Understand? If I'm experiencing buddhi, what is buddhi? It's a drishyam. Anything experience is drishyam. We never see this. No schools taught us, you know. So therefore says, this is where you have a problem. We saw up to that in the last class. So now he is defining in one more sutra, the drishya. Why this is so subtle and create some yoga. So he says, Visesha, Avisesha, Linga Matra, Alingani, Guna Parvani. Guna Parvani. Parvani means mutation. Parvani means mutation. Guna Parvani means guna mutation. The tendencies, sattva, rajas, tamas, they mutate. Wait a minute. Where does sattva, rajas, gunas comes into drishyam? He should actually say prakriti, because in Sankhya Yoga, two things are important for them: Purusha and Prakriti. Therefore, Prakriti, you should say, potentially takes a slightly different approach. Prakriti is the balanced state of three gunas. So when the gunas mutate, therefore the step should be gunas. We saw this before. If you remember, in Sankhya philosophy, they talk about two things. Dvaita philosophy it is. There are two things, eternal, Purusha and Prakriti. This word eternal is very, what I would say, it is changed. It is not eternally true. We just keep changing it because the context is different. Eternal in some senses means, you know, the relatively it's a higher time span, right? Oh my God, this sun is eternal, right? We all say. Bhagavan says, sun is eternal. But the same Shastra says, sun will die. Science says sun will die. It just burns all the time. It becomes a dead star. So therefore the eternal is a relative time frame. So I'm saying from the Vedanta perspective. So when Dvaita schools talks about eternality. In Vedanta, we just negate that. We're going to do that later. But right now, let's just keep it as it is. The Purusha and Prakriti, the two things are always there. In Sankhya philosophy, Purusha is the Chetana Tattva, conscious principle. Prakriti is inert principle. So in other words, I think it's rather said Pradhanam. Pradhanam means which is the root cause of everything. This Prakriti is alingam. Alingam means what? Unmarked. That means there is no evidence of it. Now, this is where Shraddha comes in, right? In your objective science, you want evidence of it. In philosophy, evidence is in the absence of any evidence of it. So Prakriti is alingam, cannot be marked. But we know that because of subsequent linga matram, because from the alingam comes the mahat or the buddhi, the knowing principle or the cosmic knowing principles. Indicated, linga matram, indicated. Why it is indicated? Because I infer there is existence, you can become aware of something. So there is some reflective principles in me to know something else. I don't know how I do it, but it's indicated. So it's a linga matra. So this is the evolution of Prakriti. From there comes an ahamkara. The ahamkara becomes owning up this buddhi as mine. Oh, I know it. Oh, I am this. I am knowledgeable. I am this person. The ahamkara comes in. The ahamkara is, you can say, asmita in the Patanjali parlance, is made up of mahat, buddhi. Buddhi comes from the Prakriti. Prakriti is 3 gunas. Therefore, buddhi is 3 gunas. Therefore, ahamkaram is 3 gunas. The 3 gunas are sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. Therefore, they always mutate. So the tamasic part of ahamkara creates tanmatras. Tanmatras are very general powers, which is the seed box for sprouting every other things. Because it is a joy. It came out and said, look, I know, I'm going to sprout everywhere. It creates tanmatras. From this tanmatra and ahamkara are called common things. They are not embodied yet. They are not specialized yet. It is a powerhouse. One is a egoistic principle, powerhouse. Other one is creative principle, powerhouse, tanmatras. The first is called avisheshas. These are technical terms, common ones. That means they can produce something else. Then the ahamkara with sattvic and rajasic adding together created manas and indriyas, jnana indriyas, karma indriyas. When manas and indriyas are created, what happened? They become a sukshma saridam. They become only visesham, an embodied part of it. The tanmatras, what they do, tanmatras are these sabdas, senses. Shabdam and rasam, gandham, and kind of stuff. From there comes the Panchaputas, the gross form. I think we saw all these things in Tattva Bhuta, right? Air, you have a sense of touch, then you have the fire form and the water and the earth, Panchikaranam, subtle form, gross form. We saw all that, the Panchaputas. So the Panchaputas and the Manas Indriyas are special. Why it's special? Because the gross elements in this universe is very special. If you go to if it's solar family, it's a different atmosphere, Panchaputas. We don't know. If you go to some other galaxy, maybe a different way they are there. The embodiment is, this is very, very, very lofty thought it is. Now, like you and I have a body, there's a cosmic body. Our mind has stretched so far, they start defining different cosmic bodies. The reason is that if they show changes and gunas, they are embodied. That is limited. So anything that is objective experience can be conquered. That's why the human pursuit is, when you see a planet, you should go there. Why not? This is not challenging God, it's challenging ourselves. So all this is become Vishesha. It's all this. But what we need to understand here is, the world is therefore 16 Visheshas plus the Alinga Matras, plus the Linga Matras. All this becomes Drishyam, because we took the Prakriti and then we divided into the what is indicated, what is not indicated, what is Avishesha, what is Vishesha. If all this goes out of your mind, don't worry. This is not important to understand. But just to explain this Sutra. So Patanjali said, therefore, the Prakriti is made out of all this stuff, which are Vishesha, Avishesha, Linga Matra, Alingani, Gunaparvani. So now you know it, I don't need to explain it very more. Gunaparvani, due to the modification of Guna, Prakriti becomes Pradhanam, Alingani. From there comes the Linga Matra, the Buddhi and Mahat. Mahat is the cosmic Buddhi, right? Buddhi is of my individual Buddhi. Mahat is cosmic. Then Avishesha, Vishesha, and all this. So, what do we have to take from this Sutra? If you experience anything in life, the object of experience will be a mixture of this bowl of components. It is not you. That's the idea. Okay. Now, having done the Drishyam now, he is now going to define who is Drishta. He says, Drishta Drishimatraha Shuddho api Pratyaya Anupashya. This is also very, very important sutra. Anupashya. Pashya means, it's a very rare word, but used to see, the seer. Anupashya. Anu means continuously. By continuously seeing, having followed it, having looking at this approach in this perspective of what? Of pratyaya. Pratyaya here means the thought, the buddhi. Having looking at the buddhi, having looking at how we see things, how we experience things. So what he's saying is, we see the world. Okay, let's take the world first. So we see the world, and we see the world as a drishya that exists as something to be experienced because you exist as a seer. Therefore, the first word, drishtaha, refers to all the seers. Drishtru, that you are, you and I. We see it, we perceive it. So therefore, if I see the world of objects, there are two things exist. I, the seer, the object exists, the world. Therefore, there is no samyoga. Therefore, Patanjali qualifies, the seer is actually not who do you think you are, but he's a drishi matra. It's again a technical word. Drishi itself is a root. It's not even a word. It's just a root of many words. See, just see. Matraha means that alone, that measure alone. So the see power. I don't want to say seeing power or a seer or anything, because it becomes then a formulated word and an action. It is that pure, raw capacity to be aware. Not the act of seeing. It is that pure power to see. So we call it see power. So he says that that person that is sitting there with the brain and looking at this is not the embodiment, but the drishi matraha. That drishi matraha is pure, suddha. Absolutely pure. Pure means what? It does not go through change. Suchihi. But that's a problem because we know we just learned. Buddhi are able to experience it when it goes through what? The change. The vritti has to come. So, therefore, Shuddha means there's something else which is actually making it happen. That is the Drishakti. But what happened is, even though it is like this, it is pure Drishi Matriki is a seer, it is still Shuddham. Why it says still? Even though we take it as the Buddhi because of the perception. I am the one seeing it. You understand what I'm saying? So again, the one seeing it, therefore, I am the seer. We say it very easily, casually. But it is the Drishi Matraka is the seer. Even though it is mixed with your conclusion of the Buddhi is the seer. And Buddhi is Ashuddham because it changes through. But it still remains Drishi Matram is Shuddham. So he is defining the seer as a pure Chit Shakti, like in Vedanta. The seer is merely the seeing power and is pure, even though it is perceived as the cognition of Buddhi. This you have to contemplate, think through it in your mind. Okay, it's much better that when you have this as a mananam. Next one, Padartha eva drishyasya atma. So now he is saying Padartha only for that purpose, only for that self, for that person of experience, that only for the seer, there is the self of seeing the drishya. What does it mean? See, we look at this world of objects and I am the seer. When you analyze it, I say I am the drishtru, I am the buddhi, I am the one seeing it. But you cannot see because we just saw the buddhi component that you have is linga matraha. It comes from prakriti. Prakriti is inert. Therefore, there is no way it can see it. If this body is see, why when I am dead, I don't see anything? For at least for others. So therefore, we know the experience I have also very temporal. Every time experience changes, it shows that I am vikari. Therefore, there is something else that comes in, makes this inert part to be a sentient part. We call it, we call it very loosely, call it life energy, prana, uyir in Tamil. Sometimes we use the word soul also. So a dead person is person which is soulless, we say. What happened to the dead person and the living person? What is the difference? The buddhi is there, brain is there. Because we learned Tattvabodha, we know. The body is called predam. Predam is the body. We always carry the predam. The pranan is what makes it a life form. How does it make it a life form? It brings it animates the Sukshma Sariram which dwells into this body. The prana is a life energy which animates it enlivens this one. But grossly. And the Chaitanyam which gives it the power of sentience. This subtle body is, Sukshma is so fine Every subject, any substance which is finer in nature, the reflective index will go up. If you take a black stone, it is not non-reflective, but if you keep polishing it, become a granite, it starts reflecting it. The finer the substance, reflection is become more. The mind is a very finest substance. It reflects. It reflects what? Reflects something which is always there, everywhere there. What is everywhere? The Atma. Prove it to me. Well, everywhere what is there? The light. Prove it to me. Well, just I can see you. I see you because light is everywhere there, but I see your hand. Your hand is not Swayam Prakasha. Hand is reflecting medium. Light hits on this, you get hand is seen. So you need a upadhi, a reflecting medium, to reflect existence, the light. The upadhi is the Sukshma Sariram, the Manas Indriyas thing. So when they get reflecting the light, you become a sentient being. You become a living being. Therefore, death is not Atma going somewhere. Atma goes nowhere. Atma is everywhere. What is going there is the Jivan. What you said, it's a bogus reflected light. Chitabhasam. Chit apasam. Abhasam means mimicry. Chit is the consciousness, the reflected consciousness. All this is Vedanta, we saw it. So here, therefore, the power of perception is the drishi matrihi, that Shakti. So if you understand this, we will separate this into two. There is a world of object, there is a buddhi, which I was saying as a drishtru, actually become a drishyam. Buddhi is not the seer. It is the media of seeing. Now you have to think about it in a deep, deep way, because buddhi is so close to the Atma, the Chit, the consciousness. That's why buddhi is the most important part. Bhagavan says, in all the buddhi yogam is called. In fact, when I say I, you say I, the buddhi. Everything else, you already know it. Everything else is drishyam, I can take care of it. Even the mind, I can say my mind. But when you say I one up to that I, you say ahankaram resides in the buddhi. But the buddhi is inanimate. You need to have shraddha. Bhagavan says, in Gita, it's, buddhi is like a river. You just have two banks. You need to really construct and make sure. One is very important. Samsayatma vinashyati. Samshaya means doubt. If you have doubts in things, especially in Atma Vidya, vinashyati, it leads you to nasham. So you must have nisamshayam. One sure is nisamshayam. Without any doubt. I don't have any doubt. How can I be without any doubt on anything? You understand very well. There is another part. If you don't understand very well, because your power of understanding is not developed yet, you should have what you need to have? Shraddha. So the other shore is Shraddha. Shraddhavan lapate jnanam. If you have Shraddha, you get the jnanam. So therefore, the buddhi is what we go through. The Shraddha we need is, what is the Shraddha here? Shraddha is what? Shraddha is not just a belief. It is a commitment that knowledge that is being revealed to me is Satyam. I don't understand it, but I pursue to understand it. So here the knowledge is, the buddhi is drishyam, and what is given is the chit, the consciousness. Therefore, Why he is laboring this point in the Heya Hanam? Dukkham is, where is it finally resting in us? In our buddhi. I am suffering, I am worried, I am angry. All this is happening where? Because you took the ownership of the vrittis. First of all, vritti is not happening in you, it's happening in your mind. It's not you, your mind. And it affects your brain. And you take everything on your head and say, it is my problem. So therefore, he is trying to educate us that to disown the problems, you must disown the platform where the problem exists as if it is not yours. Don't jump to conclusion. Don't say that therefore you don't do what you need to do. There's another role there. But here we are talking about not that dukkham affect my action that I need to do in this world. So therefore, even if you take it as a method to live in this world, so be it. That's the first help for us. Forget the moksha. Just to live in this world, if I need to do an action well, I must not be colored by what is happening in my buddhi. I must be an independent. Why they appoint a judge who is nothing to do with the crime? Because he has to be independent. And what does he follow? Independent doesn't mean he can follow his own judgment. No. He must still follow the code, what is given to him. So the code given to us is the Shastras, Vedantas. We are the judge. But if you're a judge, you must not be connected to, messed up with the action. But you don't have to try hard because you are naturally that. The problem happens that you think you are that person who is doing it, enjoying it. So therefore, there is this true, the perceiver is an eternal witness. See, you say something is temporary existence. We have sufficient experience in life and we say, everything will pass, nothing is permanent. How do you know that nothing is permanent? There is somebody who is watching all the experience of you, but all the time. Otherwise, you cannot connect it. Say, imagine you go to bed, when you get up, you have no memory of what happened yesterday, previous life, previous day. You cannot really relate experience is temporal because you have a connection. So there is an account keeper, there's a log, there's a timeline, that something is seeing all these things. Vedanta gives you in so many ways, in a negative way, in positive way to study it. Panchakosha vicharam we did, right? I am not this Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha. Nethi, not this. Then we do the Avasatraya Vichar. In the Jagrata state I am not, Swapna state I am not, sleeping state I am not. I am something beyond this. Then Drik Drishya Vivek we did. Seeing that is different from the seeing. Nitya Vastu Vivekam. So in so many ways, the same point is labored by the Vedantas or experiences, that anything I experience is not me. Anything that can be objectified is not me. If we understand this, we get enormous zeal and liberation. Suddenly there is no detachment because you can never be attached. Asangatvam. The samyogam is therefore, see, this is where Gaudapata and Shankara are very dhiras. They use the word, hey, all this is mithya, maya, illusion. If you don't understand, if you don't climb that mountain that I'm talking about, you will not appreciate why they call it mithya, maya, illusion. The world is unreal. Well, I touch it, it's real. How can you say unreal? Only when you understand this, samyoga nivritti. So when I am unattached to it, okay, I still have a problem with this Sankhya theory because Prakriti is eternal. Therefore, we need to solve it, but we'll not worry about it now. But here the important point is, therefore, Drishimatraha. It's just a seeing power. That means you are not this body, Okay, we make God like, like us, Nataraja dancing with 4 hands and, well, we need something to hold on to it. It can be in this form. But he is Drishimatraha. That's why when you go to Chidambaram, the temple where Lord Nataraja dances, there's a mythology that there is a Chidambara Ragasyam. And if you say, what's Ragasyam, they say, this is it, space, nothing else. Drishimatram. You saw this God, yeah, fine. That is all Buddhi, Mahat, Hiranyagarbha, Saguna Brahma. Everything goes beyond that. This Drishimatram. There's a very beautiful Upanishad mantra, which is in Svedasha Upanishad, also in Mundaka Upanishad. You might have heard this one story before. There are 2 birds sitting on a tree. Okay, there are different ways people interpret that, but I go by what Shankara says. And the 2 birds sitting on this tree, beautiful birds. One is eating the fruits. And when it eats the fruit makes it somehow dull, intoxicates it. So this is I'm adding to it. It may be falling down in different branches. And then it may eat another fruit. It may be giving you some energy. It may jump up to this. So it is doing, transacting. There's another bird just simply watching it, always closer to it. Dva, Suparna, Sayuja, Sakaya, Samana, Vriksham, Parishyavachite. There are 2 birds. Important words here. Suparna, Sayuja, Sakaya. Suparna, sir. Okay, so it's a golden bird, but it is also the bird which is so close to each other. Sayujam, they are in the same place. Sakayam, they can't, they're eternally inseparable. These birds are. Tayoga anyaha pipalam swada ati anashna manyo abhichakshati. The one is eating all these seeds. Now, I will not dwell into this because this is takes another session for it. But simply what it means is that in this context, the buddhi is the bird which is eating the fruits. The chaitanyam, the drishishaktihi alone is the bird watching the buddhi. So this is how it is. But samyogam, where the samyogam happens, this eating bird does not see the witnessing bird. And it eats, it suffers, it elates, it thinks therefore the life is full of suffering and this. The only way to do is keep eating more and more, falling, rising, falling, rising, falling, rising. But then when it realizes, look, I can be the eternal witness, rather I am the eternal witness. When it happens, what happens then? The samyogam disappears. There's only one bird. So what about the tree? What about the fruits? Now, this is where I think Vedanta Vedanta differs. All these fruits, trees, everything is just disappears into this bird. Whereas in Sankhya philosophy, this drama always goes through. So we will not discuss those things now. We only take it for what we need. So therefore, I wanted to bring this here. The purpose of Drishyam is therefore to keep it an experience for the buddhi. But if it is too close, I see the 2 birds are very similar. And you also say that it becomes one. when you realize it, then why don't you just say they are the same birds, therefore they are experiencing the same thing? Why can't you just take it? Very logical question. Why are you beating around the bush? You can't do that because they are very close and similar. But when you use the word very similar itself, it means they are not the same. But they are dissimilar as well. Why is dissimilar? Like, for example, buddhi is trigunated. I mean, it basically all the three gunas are there in buddhi. Why? Because buddhi comes from what? Prakriti. We're not going to do Vedanta. We just stay with Patanjali. Trigunated. That means it has got Rajas, Tamas, Sattvam comes in. Therefore, there's a parinama Olachi. So buddhi sometimes becomes Shanta buddhi. Sometimes becomes Gora buddhi, anger, jealous, or Muda buddhi. So you cannot say, we don't say, sometimes we say, I am very peaceful. Sometimes even we say, I'm angry. Gora buddhi. Because we normally don't say, I am a stupid guy, but somebody may else tell on you. But all this, when you say this, you are saying, because of samyogam, you are not Shantatma, you are not the Goratma, you are not the Mudatma. All this is because the buddhi. In fact, if you understand this one, who needs moksha? Is it the Atma needs moksha? We write, in somebody, if somebody is dead, we say, Atma Shanti. Atma is Shanti. Atma cannot attain Shanti. Atma cannot go anywhere. Shanti is Atma. Jivan is what needs mukti. The eating bird needs moksha. Purusha doesn't need moksha. So who needs moksha? Prakriti and Purusha. Who needs moksha here? Is Purusha needs moksha? We will see in the next class. I think in Sankhya Yoga, Purushas are many. Prakriti is one, Purushas are many. Every being is a Purusha. So therefore, there are multiple Purushas. So Dvaitavadam also goes by this. There are multiple Purushas. There's one Prakriti. And now each one get liberated. Therefore, each liberation is different. In Vedanta, I don't want to go right now, but very briefly. So if Purusha is always liberated, Prakriti is inert. Therefore, there is somebody needs liberation means there's something exists in between these two, transiting between these two. What is that? That is the jiva. So we can take the jiva as Purusha. If you want to take the first equation, there are many Purushas. Then bringing Vedanta into Sankhya, we can say Purusha is a jiva. Yeah. Therefore, jiva needs moksha. But if you take Purusha as Atma, Atma doesn't need moksha. Atma is moksha. Therefore, there exists something which is transient, which borrows an energy or chaitanyam from the Atma and dwells in Prakriti's body. That is Jiva. Sukshma Sarira, the reflecting medium, Buddhi. Therefore, liberation is needed to what? To the Buddhi, to the Jivatma, to the Sukshma body, the Chitta Bhashaka. So I think we will stop it here because it's a bit heavy, but I hope you understand. So what we've seen so far today about this true is that the seer is Chit, the consciousness, but we assume the Buddhi is the seer, and therefore this samyogam has to be removed. The reason why this point is labeled, because our goal is not to talk about this dry philosophy, who am I? What's the point of all this? Our goal is that I want to live freely. But to live freely, that means you have to live free of dukkham. And therefore, to free of dukkham, you should really understand that you are taking the dukkhams of something else as if it's yours. But something else is nothing but the buddhi in you, which parade like you. You call it I because you need to deal with this world. But in your adhyatmikam, in your pursuit of own living and moksham, that I, the buddhi, the jiva bhavam, is transient. It's a drishyam. That's the whole essence of this. So we stop it here and we will take it in the next class. We do the Shanti Padam. Om Shadoma Shadgamaya
Satoma Sadgamaya
Masoma Jyotirgamaya
Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya
Mrityoma Amrdam Gamaya
Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, Raja.
Namaste, namaskar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.